Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Here we are, the middle of November, and depending on where you're watching this, this could be something that is in season for you right now or timely for you right now, and or it could be something that you're probably about a month out if you're south of where I'm at here in Kentucky. Fit this to what your time is, but right now guys, we're going to talk about November, how that's affecting me, and then the peak rut, the pros of the peak rut, so you can tie that to your your time at your location. So let's just jump into this one, guys. The education for this fall and the habitat season, that's probably one of the biggest pros that I see that folks can be successful yet right now in season, if you will. But I also find it's a very missed opportunity or a big misstep going into next year. And so let's touch on the first one. This season, guys, if you have any information, let's say we're running cameras, regular carded cameras or cell cameras, and you've got this information of a buck that made some mistakes last year during the rut, right? Then I would highly recommend being in that same area or that same window this year. So let's say last year it was a cold front that come in on the 9th or the 10th of November, if this is pertaining to you in November, right? And that buck was daylighting and made a bunch of mistakes. Well, and you just, you were working or not on the property or whatever the case was, and you just weren't able to be there when he was there. So and he made it through, right? You got some information that he's still, through October, maybe you picked him up in the pre-rut, maybe he settled back into your area, whatever the case is, and now all of a sudden it's creeping up on that time again, and all of a sudden now you have an opportunity to be able to get to the farm, be able to get into that stand. When do you go, right? What I do is that Weather Underground app, guys, or go right to the website of Weather Underground. Try to get a real good handle on what he did last year as far as weather and wind, and then start looking at weather. Right now, the reason I'm doing this is because we're going into what I believe maybe tonight might possibly, if the rain works with me here, might possibly be the best hunt of the season. And the reason for that is I'm in the middle of November, where we usually peak, our rut peaks about the 13th, 14th here is what I have found the last 4 years here in central Kentucky. And up north, Michigan, Wisconsin, I always found that it peaked around the 7th or 8th. So we are in it, but we've had some major fronts come in as far as weather fronts, as far as rain, and it's really hindered a lot of feeding movements. And every time the winds go down and the rain attempts to stop, Western Kentucky, for example, got 3 inches. We've got just over an inch here, and every time it goes to stop, the bucks are on their feet, right? So we've just been inches away from sealing the deal on a couple of our target bucks with someone like guest in camp, and just haven't been able to get the deal done. A couple with a bow and a couple past week with a during our gun season. So use that information, right? Don't overlook that opportunity. If he did it last year, history always repeats itself. So if it's a weather front and it's a couple of days, use that weather. Try to hunt the backside of a front. Maybe it might be a day or 2, 3, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it is, different than last year. But use that weather to your advantage. The second part of it is, guys, is next fall. How can you use what's going on right now into next year? And that is where the habitat and the building part of it comes in. So whether you're just tweaking stands and maybe it's a lease that you've got, maybe it's public ground, right, that you really can't do any habitat improvements, some manipulation, some habitat improvements, planting some trees, switchgrass, food plots, whatever those strategies are. Use that information to gain profit on that next year. I see so many folks just struggling this year. Maybe you do get the job done, maybe you don't, maybe you have to hunt 90-day season to get it done, and then next year it's like, yep, that's the same thing he did last year, and the season is just dragging on again, but nothing changed, right? So look ahead and start implementing, okay, this stand needs to be tweaked a little bit, right? Would be a good spot for a shot plot. I'm hunting the food plot too much. I need to stop that, right? I need to put a doe bedding here so I can hunt on the backside of the doe bedding. It's doing that first 100-yard rim of the food plot. I need a licking branch here. I need a water hole here. All these things, right? And start when you're in the stand. And I enjoy my hunts. Don't get me wrong, guys, but my mind's going a million miles an hour, and I'm making mental notes, writing them actually down on my phone. I've got a tablet as well, a paper tablet that I write some stuff down. Still, maybe that sounds old school, but as the habitat season comes in, the season ends here, I know what I got to fix. I've got a couple shooting lanes that I got to do this year. I've got one piece of my transition that I need to mulch. I've got a spur maybe off from that. I've got a stand tweak that I have to do, an additional stand I'm going to put in, stuff like that that's starting to pile up, that's making that list, right? So don't overlook that, and really start studying what you can do to manipulate that, or build on that habitat. Maybe it's just making the habitat stronger, right? Maybe it's creating it, maybe it's maintaining it, maybe you built it a couple of years ago and it's starting to fail. Maybe it's time to back a fire through there, whatever the case is. This one here, guys, is the one we're gonna touch on today that pertains to my hunt for this afternoon, hopefully, if it stops raining. It's supposed to stop raining about 1 or 2 o'clock, and I'm gonna dive in, and I might take the bow instead of the gun. We're in the middle of our gun season here, and I might take the bow instead of the gun and see if I can get the job done on one of my target bucks tonight. So the line of travel, and I've got written right here, you probably can't see that, I added it on later, but it says the promoted line of travel, the importance, right, of that. So you always hear this time of the year, guys, that, these bucks are covering such a long, extending their home range, and they're not here because they're covering such a large area. There's pieces of that can be true. I find, guys, that attaches more to your 3.5, 4.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5-year-old bucks than it does your 1.5-year-old and your 5.5-year-old. So hear me out on that one. Is the reason I say that, guys, is your 1.5-year-old bucks are very social. They're still hanging around the deer that they know, right, where they were born and raised. All of a sudden, 2 and 3 and 4-year-old time periods come in their life cycle, and all of a sudden they start reaching out, and maybe they get booted out by that doe. They were here the first year. They start searching for all this stuff is changing in their life, right? And they stretch that core out. I mean, I've got bucks here that have been seen, 1.5 miles, 2 miles from here. So in ridge country, you'll find that maybe as a direct line as a crow flies, maybe you don't see the large volume of how amount of miles, let's say. I'm going to touch on why that's so important to me as that buck gets older, as it starts shrinking, and he should be easier to hunt, right? And I think a lot of folks just think that it's the opposite. The older he gets, the harder he is to hunt because he's covering more acreage. And that's not maybe acreage, but not miles, right? Inline miles. I really want to stress something here, guys. So what you'll find is, let's talk about those 2.5, 3.5, 4.5-year-old bucks. Is if you draw a line as a crow flies, let's say, right? So this is a property here, this is a property, and then let's just say that this is your 80 or this is your 40, right? And you draw a line across this. I mean, these bucks can travel in line. Maybe this is 2 miles, right? Well, here's what shocks a lot of folks. Let's just use this as a 40. Let's just say this is your 40, right? I think what a lot of folks don't understand is if you look and you build on the importance of this that we talked about above, and you keep building and you understand the circulation that I teach and how and where to put this habitat right, and your stand assemblage, all this stuff, your amenities, I don't think that a lot of folks make the connection that 2 miles, you can on an 80, you can cycle that 2 miles on 180, very easy. Inline movement, just distance, straight line. And the reason I say that is this, guys. So let's just use this as a 40. if this buck is traveling 2 miles and then, you know, maybe you catch him a few days later and he comes back, he could potentially be covering that much ground. But what if we use this mentality and we spin him around on a promoted 40 acres? Now what? 40 acres, guys, around 360 degrees around is a mile plus. So that's straight line. When you start ducking and diving out of here in ridge country, that's the outermost promoted trail that we use. 40 acres is a mile. So you've already potentially cut his foot spending, let's say, the amount of miles that he has to go to get what he's searching for in inline movement. You've cut that down to a 40 acres. So I hope that one makes sense. And the point I'm driving home here, guys, with you is, if you've got all of this stuff in here, let's just put these as licking branches, right? Let's just say on a 40, maybe you got 4 or 6, something like that, right? Licking branches, and your stands are to the outside, and this buck starts coming in here and cruising around, and it's a mile worth of a racetrack, let's say, right? The time that he's spending on here, you know, this could have taken him, let's just say 2 miles, and I know this for, you know, from research and stuff. I mean, that they can do that. Let's say it's 3 or 4 hours, right, of that inline traffic, and you get a picture of him here, and then a buddy gets a picture of him 2 or 3 miles down here, and all of a sudden it's 4 hours later or something. It's like, man, that deer's covering a lot of ground in a short amount of time. Well, what I find on my property here, guys, if I get a picture of him, of deer slots into my 72 acres here, or 40s in up north, or, you know, this goes for the south as well. If a deer slots in here, guys, you'll be shocked on how long, because you want to make it a path of least resistance for him so he can make good time, but he's stopping, using the licking branches, stopping here, hitting a water hole, going up here. There's another water hole up here maybe. There's a bunch of habitat involved, and he's scent checking this from the outside, and then if there's a dead spot in the center where a bunch of ash trees fell or something like that, or these interior areas, maybe we deem them buck bedding, maybe we don't, whatever the case is, all of a sudden, guys, you get this track around here. And what I find is this buck not only starts going, let's just say he starts here and he goes this way. What I find, all of a sudden he gets here, he goes up through the core. Maybe it's his bed, maybe it's somebody else's bed. They don't know what's in those areas, guys. If their habitat correct, they just know that they have to scent check them, right? So he gets in here, and all of a sudden, now this way, keep in mind, he was going this way. Now he gets up here, all of a sudden, guess what? He's going this way. And all of a sudden, you've got miles. This 1 mile could jump to three miles a day, and he never left a 40 or an 80, right? So now all of a sudden, you've taken this 2 mile racetrack, and it doesn't seem as far-fetched. And all of a sudden, 4 hours, now you've got 2 or 3 hours of this, let's say 2, 3 hours or whatever that case is, burnt on your 40 acres or 80 acres. That's where that 5.5-year-old mentality comes in, guys. If the breeding search goes down dramatically, is what I find. I've got a couple of them here that are doing that this year. It goes down dramatically, right? Sometimes that makes them harder to hunt during the peak of the rut, because they're not as susceptible to really going out, or not vulnerable, let's say, going out and having to find those does. Will they take advantage of that opportunity if a doe trips through his area? Yeah, but it's more about survival, right? And if you can crunch his core down and give him everything he needs, he's not going to go as far, right? Because let's face it, this is what this looks like, what we're talking about on flat ground here. But so that we're talking miles that we're talking just on a 40 or 80, right? You put contour to that now, and nothing is a straight line, right? It's up and down and around and bends. So that's just exterior. Now you add all the interior stuff that he's going to dissect and look at, and I'm telling you, it's miles and miles and hours per day, right? So I just wanted to share this one with you guys. Them are the advantages that you can take the advantage of during the peak rut in your area. And the last thing I'll touch on here, guys, is I get this all the time, and it's something that I'm working on, and we're gaining traction, busting this myth. But I hear from clients time and time, and folks just in general all over the country, that this is great. These strategies sound great for, you know, the Midwest and up north, but they don't work in the South. It's absolute hogwash. No pun intended on the hogs, right? It's absolutely not the truth. To be honest with you, we've got contour. Some parts of the South have contour and density because of the way that they, you know, the marketable pine or something like that. So if you're on a leased property or you're managing this big, beautiful pine timber, I get it. Sometimes you can be handicapped, but if you own a property and that is not, you have the best of both worlds, where you've got pine value, let's say, and or hardwood, but you got pine value, and you have some very good area that is deer worthy, guys. This strategy, the South is such a it could be such a dominating piece to implement this. And my clients that are doing this down in this, let's just say the Southeast or anywhere south of Kentucky, are striving, and the reason is nobody else is doing it, right? So don't look at this as just a Midwest or just a Kentucky or Midwest or Michigan or northerly thing, because it's not. Deer mentality is deer mentality, whether it's South Texas. The way that they navigate, the way that what they look for, the way that they scent check stuff, guys, it doesn't change. Their world could change, their environment could change, but the way that a deer is wired does not change. So I just wanted to share this one with you. Whether you're in a gun season and you can take advantage for more of this from afar in multiple different areas, or whether you can take, or whether you have to be close in, like I'm maybe going to choose to do tonight. Love gun hunting. But I shot a buck with my gun last year, and I'd like to shoot one with my bow this year. And I had 2 opportunities already to do so. Passed up a buck with a muzzleloader, 4.5-year-old buck, and I don't know, the buck that I'm after, I just like to shoot him with a bow. So I love my gun hunting, and so maybe tonight, if the rain doesn't slow down, maybe I will take the gun, just so if I do get a chance on him, I don't have to track him in the rain. So best of luck to everybody out there, guys. Look at this as, I'm talking where I'm at in November, but look at this as the peak rut strategy is not just a November thing. If your peak rut is in, you know, December, tie this to your situation. So best of luck to everybody. Stay safe. And Michigan rifle opener is coming here within a day or two of probably by the time you see this. Best of luck to everybody. And don't overlook these situations. When you're sitting in the stand, be thinking about next year. Be thinking about how to better your hunt now because of what happened last year, but also be looking into what you can change to better it next year. And don't overlook the importance and the understanding of really knowing the importance of a promoted line of travel. Thanks, guys.